Adorning the hallowed walls of Real Madrid's Santiago Bernabeu, there's a faded photo of the Galacticos. All the big names are there. Beckham, Roberto Carlos, the great Zidane. But nestled between Luis Figo and Ronaldo is a face you might not recall. A wild-eyed midfielder with a gleaming bald head. It's Thomas Gravesen.
It's Gravesen!
The Danish midfielder who dated porn stars, brought dynamite to training, and once spunked $54 million in one night. This is the story of Real Madrid's most unlikely Galactico. Welcome back to The Upshot. I'm Jack. Zach is here as ever.
Hello, Jack.
And we are in the esteemed company of Maverick connoisseur, as he's asked me to call him, Will Richards. Welcome, Will.
Thank you guys for having me. Very proud to be here.
I'm very, very proud to have you talking about a real Maverick. Should we just explain Maverick connoisseur? So you are a connoisseur of Mavericks?
Yeah, I just love a Maverick. And Thomas Gravesen was someone who, when he was playing, when I was quite young, I didn't really appreciate him for the Maverick that he was. But since he has retired, I think, wow, he's up there.
Yeah. I just noticed you've come in wearing Crocs and socks, so you're a bit of a Maverick yourself.
Yeah, and I'm wearing a Marshall Mathers t-shirt.
Yeah, another famed Maverick.
Yeah, because I actually thought I'd Google the definition of Maverick before I came in today, and it means, well, I'm sure we all know, but it's an individualist, someone who marches to the beat of their own drum.
Yeah,
and that's me, Zach. You know.
You know, some bring dynamite to training, others Crocs socks and an M&M t-shirt.
Yeah, but they're just so comfortable.
It does.
Like some people think it's a statement, but yeah.
You said that you have your list of top 4 Mavericks.
Yeah, I compiled that in preparation for this, and it's a top 4 because I couldn't think of 5. But at number 4, it's Benoit Assou-Ekotto.
Oh, yeah.
And he's part of the genre of footballer who hates football. And so you got Ben White is one of them.
Yeah.
But I like Benoit Assou-Ekotto's brand of hating football, because I think Benoit Assou-Ekotto hated playing football, whereas Ben White hates watching football.
Yeah, he never watches it.
Yeah, I love a bit of Benny.
Yeah.
I remember I heard a story about he got his hair cut, and it was when Luis Suarez had bitten someone in the World Cup. I think it was his second bite. And Benoit Assou-Ekotto had no idea. That's how out of touch he was with football. And Luis Suarez was someone who he had repeated scuffles with on field.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very out of touch, but in quite a cool way. Always liked his hair. He was just quite a cool, weird bloke. But that's why he's at number 4. He's not top Mavs. At 3, I'm going to go Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, he is arguably the most famous Maverick in English football, but he's quite an obvious Maverick, and that kind of is not Maverick, isn't it?
Yeah.
What, you mean too obvious as a choice?
He's not a Mavericks Maverick. He's the non-Mavericks Maverick.
Yeah.
And at number 2, I'm going to go Big Grav.
Yeah.
Today's subject, Big Grav, the Mad Dog, Thomas Gravesen. Yeah, I love that. I didn't really know that he was I didn't know how Maverick he was when he was playing. I only really clocked that after he retired.
Yeah.
Which is kind of Maverick. And number 1, I'm going Balotelli. And I'm just it's just all in the hat for me.
Yeah.
That hat.
The glove.
I don't know
the glove hat, the Wallace and Gromit hat.
I don't know how Benoit Assou-Ekotto has made this.
He's pretty Maverick, no?
He's just, but it's a Maverick list, this. So that's how many made it on.
I mean, Balotelli's standout.
Yeah, but the thing about Big Grav is I kind of think of him as a pre-social media Balotelli. Like, he loves fireworks. He is obviously he's mad as a hatter. And he's his ability is unquestioned, but he's really frustrating. That's what I've heard a lot about Grav. Obviously different types of players, but...
Yeah, I mean, if you ask most people, Thomas Gravesen, they'll probably say Everton, bald, Real Madrid.
Yeah, he's just another Lee Carsley. That's what I thought of him when he was playing.
Well, we talked about this story on a recent pod, how when Real Madrid bought Gravesen, a lot of people thought actually they were in for Lee Carsley because he was his midfield partner, and they look so similar.
Yeah.
But I think Lee Carsley's sort of...
They called them the Mitchell brothers.
But actually, Lee Carsley's quite sort of like well behaved as far as I can tell. We'll find out.
But yeah, like during Gravesen's playing career, I don't think I really was aware of all of these things that are going on. It's kind of later that they've come out.
Well, it's pre-social media.
Yeah, but it has all come out.
Here we are in the age.
Yeah. Should we kick it off? Should we? Yeah. Zach, do you want to take us back to the early years? Yeah.
So Thomas Gravesen is from Vejle, which is a small town in Denmark. He started out playing for his local team there, Vejle Bowl Club. And he grows up, and it's kind of a golden era for Danish football. Like, they win the Euros in 1992. Obviously, this is when he's a child, but that's kind of the context that he grows up in. Coming through the ranks, he's known for his fiery temperament. So one of his teammates recalls he was always fighting in training, in matches, fighting. Eventually, he gets promoted to the first team, but in the lead up to his debut in training, he flies in 2-footed on one of his teammates, like horror tackle, takes them out, and the manager decides to ban him from the first team for 6 months.
6 months is a long ban.
It's a long time when you're trying to break through, but you know
he's one of these guys who it doesn't matter if it's training, like he's just always the same mode.
It's only 0 or 100, and it's mostly 100. So eventually he does get into the first team. I'm not sure how popular he was with his teammates, but he kind of finds that the rigours of training though aren't quite enough to sort of keep him busy. So he decides to take a side job in a garage selling spare car parts. He says, "I need to know that the alarm clock rings in the morning. Otherwise, I will never go to bed."
Well, it's like he's in the room.
Yeah, that's good.
True.
Danish is one of Zach's better accents, actually.
Double.
So hang on, what's his point there? That I need something that just gets me? Because you could have an alarm clock anyway.
Yeah, I guess, because you'd have thought that training is in the morning. I don't know how they do it at Vejle Bowl Club. Maybe they've got like a different schedule. But yeah, I think he just decided that he needs a bit more
structure,
stimulate him, a bit more structure. Yeah,
he looks like a mechanic.
Yeah,
true.
I don't know if he was bald then, but
even so, I think
he was actually quite flamboyant. Like, he wore this dangly earring, and he had sort of like slicked back hair. I don't know. I think he was a bit of a Lothario.
I'm finding that very hard to picture. All I can picture is, when people made that pic of Alan Shearer with like long flowing brown hair, and like imagine if he turned up like this one day. Feels about as realistic as Thomas Gravesen.
He's actually a bit of a hunk in his younger days.
Well, with no hair, I always thought not a bad looking bloke. Absolute unit as well.
Yeah, if that's your thing. And for many people it is.
What's the term for that type of look? Is there it's not a bear, is it? Because there's no hair.
Yeah, there's definitely a name for it, but...
What's a hairless bear? Let us know, please. At Upshot Towers.
So yeah, he plays a couple of seasons with Vejle, and they do pretty well. They finish second in the Danish league, which for them is really good. And he catches the eye of some of Europe's bigger clubs. So he ends up turning down Napoli and moving to Hamburg. He said, "I wanted to play in the Bundesliga. What do I want in Naples? I can go on holiday there."
Which, I mean, like, Serie A is still one of the best leagues.
Yeah, like Serie A in the whenever this was, in the late 90s, is kind of where to go. I think part of what attracted him to Hamburg was the location. So
it's the closest city to Denmark, a big city.
Yeah. So you've got your geography.
Yeah, homesick, Gravs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so to begin with, he insists on carrying on living in Vejle. So he'd travel to training every day on his motorbike. It's 175 miles each way.
He's probably going quite fast.
He's going
hour and a bit, that.
Yeah. But eventually Hamburg kind of find out that he's doing this, and they're not too keen. So they insist that he moves into a flat in the centre of Hamburg. Apparently he just put on the buzzer to his flat, Gravesen HSV, like HSV, the Hamburg initials. And fans knew where he'd live, so they just like go around, buzz the bell, and he'd just bring him up and hang out.
Or just come in.
Yeah. Well, because they loved him.
Like many nutters, he makes no distinction between who he's talking to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. He's just
every club that he ends up at, the fans absolutely love him.
Yeah.
Also brings his motorbike with him to Hamburg. There's a story of one of his teammates coming into training and like walking into reception and going to them and being like, "Man, there was this guy passed me on the Autobahn, like nutter, like he's there in like a shirt, flip-flops, doing like 180 down the autobahn, and then walks into the dressing room, and there's Gravesen in his shorts and flip flops. So he gets a reputation around the training ground for pranks. So one time he sneaks bubble bath into the club's wellness centre and pours it into all of the pools, which is quite a harmless little.
Yeah, that's a classic. That one.
It is a classic. Not all of them are so harmless, though.
Yeah.
So while he's at Hamburg, he gets called up to the Danish national side for the first time. Apparently, the manager at the time was a little bit unsure about calling him up. Was worried that he was a little bit, in his words, psychologically unstable. And those fears probably were not allayed when Gravesen brought a stick of dynamite into training. See, apparently, he was showing it around to his teammates and gave it to one of them. And was like, "Yeah, it's a firework. Go, you go set it off." So the teammate went off, and he's like, "But the one thing to remember, once you set it off, run away. Just run away." So the teammate's like, "Okay, great." Yeah, digs it into the ground on the training pitch, lights it, and they all run off. And this thing just blows a crater in the training pitch.
Where's he getting dynamite from?
I have no clue.
I feel like he's a resourceful character.
Yeah.
He can find a way.
Get his hands on most things.
Maybe his old powers from the garage.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway, at Hamburg, he becomes a star, really, of the team. And like I said, the fans absolutely loved him. He's this real, hard, tough tackling defender, wild eyes. And that convinces Everton to fork out for him in the year 2000.
Yeah, and that's probably when he comes into most British fans' lives. That's when they first meet Thomas Gravesen, and he's instantly a fan favourite at Goodison because he's got these crazed eyes and he puts in these gnarly knee-high tackles. But he is also technically brilliant. I think a lot of people remember him as this midfield enforcer, but actually he could be quite box-to-box, he could play quite far forward and be quite a creative player. And so, if you're at Everton, this is like the dream cult hero. He's got a bit of everything. And, he's the kind of player that the opposition fans hate. But if he's at your club, you love him. I would that thing of I hate to use Richarlison as an example, but when he's at your club, he's your cunt. And then you don't really mind it. I think Gravesen's more likeable than that, but opposition fans hate him just because he's...
Do Tottenham fans actually like Richarlison, though? He hasn't even been good for them, really.
No. Yeah,
you're a sometime.
I'm a Tottenham sympathiser, and I don't think he's delivered enough. I don't think he's delivered enough for the fans to love him.
Yeah, maybe a bad example. I'm trying to think, who's another he's a cunt, but he's our cunt.
Well, Roy Keane.
Roy Keane would be the ultimate.
His Gravesen's style of play, it sounded Keane-esque with the box to box.
Yeah,
cunt, but has ability.
Yeah.
So Everton fans love him, and this is also where Gravesen picks up his Scouse accent. He's on Merseyside for 4 or 5 years, but he picks up a little bit of the Scouse accent and also picks up the habit of calling everyone la and lad. So you listen to people telling stories about him, every sentence ends with lad, and that's I think he gets this odd Danish Scouse mix, which I look forward to attempting shortly.
Yeah.
And he does things a bit differently as well. So Gravesen has this fancy supercar, but he refuses to drive it in the winter because he doesn't want to damage it. So he's just bouncing around in this banged up Renault Megane instead. And he does the same with his boots. He has a summer pair that are really fancy. But in the winter, he just wears those old black leather Hummel boots. Those ones probably picture them from school, just the least glamorous boots you can wear. Thick leather, gives you blisters.
I feel like that's the kind of thing that endears you to fans as
massively.
Well.
Yeah, dodgy
especially
car.
the boots. Once is that the era when people would start wearing
Predators?
It's
a bit after that.
It's like total 90s, right?
Maybe
a bit early.
This is a bit later than the flash boots.
How common were black boots then?
Pretty common.
You never see them now.
Yeah, I'd still say most boots.
I almost feel like now when people are wearing black boots, it's their flair. I'm just
Maverick.
Yeah, anti-flair.
Yeah, I reckon Beckham kind of starts the coloured... there were coloured boots before that, but...
I was watching Come Dine With Me Footballers Special the other day, and either John Fashanu or Carlton Palmer were apparently the first to wear non-black boots in the Premier League.
Okay, when was that, 90s?
Yeah,
in the
early 90s.
Yeah.
But I'd recommend the episode.
What happens in it?
So it's those two I mentioned, Razor Ruddock and Frank Worthington, who was one of the...
Yeah, nutter.
Have you...
The Scottish guy?
No, he's a northerner. He's from Huddersfield.
We're going to do an episode on him. I think.
Yeah, he's a ladies'
shagger.
man. Yeah, he's like he's a shagger's shagger.
His book's called One Hump or Two.
Yeah.
So shit, but does tell you.
Yeah. And they're all mad on it. They're all terrible at cooking. Razor Ruddock, he opens the door in an apron and nothing else. John Fashanu, he doesn't drink. But he provides them alcohol and he puts red wine in the fridge and white wine. Yeah,
he's quite sinister.
Yeah.
We did a Crazy Gang episode.
He's so odd.
He's
John
Hannibal
Fashanu.
Lecter.
Yeah, he's got like psycho eyes, but he is hilarious.
Yeah.
I'd recommend
the fact that he doesn't drink adds to his psycho vibe.
Yeah, also, not drinking and serving
Yeah.
alcohol to other people.
Have another glass.
Yes, why not?
But Carlton
Razor.
Palmer's a real cutie. Razor's Razor. Frank Worthington is quite smooth and cool.
Yeah, I mean, if
And
you've
then-
got a
in
book
fact-
called One Hump or Two, then
Yeah.
you've got to be pretty smooth.
In fact, John Fashanu might have to put him at number 5 for Maverick.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about him a lot on the
Okay.
Crazy Gang episode, and we thought,
Yeah, I'm just shoehorning
Bastard.
people in now.
no, I mean,
lazy.
he's a maverick, but he's in the sort of violent, in the way that Hannibal Lecter is a maverick.
I think he's the scariest person that we've
Yeah,
discussed.
because he's violent, but
he's
he
just
speaks in quite a
Yeah.
sort of
It's like Chris
threatening
Eubank.
way.
Yeah, the Chris Eubank
But
vibe.
Chris Eubank's got more of a comedy element, doesn't he? Chris Eubank's quite sweet and bizarre. Fashinu's
I still find him scary.
menacing.
Chris Eubank at least saved his beating up people for the ring rather than Fashanu, who were just indiscriminately.
Which means that Carlton
Main
Palmer was the
teammates.
first to not wear black boots, probably.
Yeah, let's go with Carlton Palmer.
Yeah, so that'd be early.
And he
90s.
won as well. The
As he
Sometime
he's
Review.
handy cook.
Yeah,
don't
he-
spoil it now.
Fuck.
That was my
Yeah,
Friday night.
it's a super episode.
We'll put a spoiler alert at the start of the episode. Anyway, yeah, so Gravesen is going the other end of the spectrum. He's going back to basics, 1980s style boots. And yeah, the fans love that. They christened him Mad Dog, not only for his wild antics on the pitch, where he's just chucking in these two-footed tackles, but also just, all his bizarre behaviour away from it. One of the fun stories from this time is that his girlfriend at the time was playing for Everton's women's team. Identity unknown, actually. We don't know her name. But anyway, so he was going out with this girl in the Everton women's team, and they used to do training sessions together. So when training would finish, they'd do a few drills. And apparently he'd quite often get her to do a dribbling drill, dribbling at him, and then he would just fly in two-footed and take her out. As I said before, with Thomas Gravesen, doesn't matter who you are. Everyone gets treated the same way. And so words reaching the Everton fans at these moments, and they're kind of falling in love with him more and more. The training ground is where a lot of his wildest antics take place. So James McFadden, his teammate, tells a story that he would turn up with a paintball gun and just chase them around, just firing at point blank range, bruising all his teammates. He also brought fireworks into training, actual ones this time, not dynamite. Apparently the players were all jogging around the pitch, and suddenly Gravesen appears with his lit firework and starts shooting it at the physio, just out of his hand. You can imagine David Moyes being pretty fucked off about. Moyes kind of says Tommy was Tommy. What can you do about it?
Yeah, I guess he kind of tolerated it with Rooney as well when all of these scandals came out.
Funny you mentioned Rooney, because Gravesen then runs off with the fireworks before anyone can stop him, and he's later found with Wayne Rooney, who's just a teenager at this point, and he and Rooney have pulled some drain pipes off the wall, and they're using them as cannons, shooting fireworks at each other. So you sort of slide the firework in, and then it's just
That's creative.
yeah, sounds really fun.
I like that he's gone and found the 17-year-old who's up for doing that. Tony Hibbert wasn't keen.
I'm sure Rooney is who he is partly because of
his time
Yeah,
with
Yeah,
Gravesen.
caught the bug.
yeah.
Yeah, that's quite an iconic moment in football history, really. Like a teenage Wayne Rooney and a
Yeah.
wild-eyed
It
Thomas
does
Gravesen.
remind me a little bit of Dennis Rodman, the way that Dennis Rodman had to. Well, he found 12-year-olds to hang out with who were just up for.
That sounds quite
for just-
sinister.
Yeah, oddly, it's
Yeah,
not. It's quite sweet.
it's quite
but
Oh, is
sweet.
it not?
but-
Okay.
But there's something about Gravesen as well. It's you've got to find the we'll come on to later at Celtic. He kind of finds his place socially with the younger players and the reserves and stuff. And it's again, he sort of needs these teenagers who get him. I think everyone's loving it, possibly with the exception of David Moyes. And as I said, most of the fans love him, but you're going to meet the odd hater inevitably. And on one Saturday night, Gravesen is out in a nightclub on Merseyside, News Bar, and he gets chatting to these Everton fans, and most of them are just sort of loving it and probably slapping him on the head affectionately. But there's one fan who's had a few to drink, and he's basically tells him I think you're fucking shit, lad. And he's he basically reveals to Gravesen that at every home game he sits in the front row and just like screams abuse at him, just doesn't think he should be playing for Everton. And, you know, you'd be like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? A lot of footballers would either walk away or deck the bloke, but it's Thomas Gravesen. So he just sort of like keeps him talking, finds out a bit more about this guy. He's like, do you play? And the guy's like, I play Sunday League. He's like, where? Finds out where this guy's playing. And this is Saturday night. The next morning, this guy runs out to play for his Sunday League side, just like in a local park. And there on the touchline is Thomas Gravesen. And Gravesen spends all 90 minutes just barking abuse at this one guy. He'd be like, you fucking shit, lad! Just screaming at him. And
that's great.
That poor guy just had to play on through it. Back on a slightly bigger stage than a random kickabout in Sefton Park, Gravesen is a key part of the Denmark team who qualified for the 2002 World Cup. So it's probably worth saying, like, at this point, he is a major star in Denmark. Like, he's one of the biggest names. Obviously, they had a really good team in the 90s, won Euro 92, but this is a bit later. So I think Schmeichel's probably gone. Are the Laudrup brothers gone? Possibly. So he's like the big hero, and like he has a massive cult following. Any story about Gravesen around the world is going to make the news in Denmark. And so he's like the linchpin in this team. And there's this famous qualifying game against Iceland where they win 6-0 and Gravesen scores twice. So he's the hero. And I guess a win over Iceland, if you're Denmark, is quite a big deal, isn't it? It's kind of sort of...
Yeah, Scandi rival.
Yeah, it's sort of, there's like, it's a bit like, I don't know, England-Wales or something.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
To be fair, England never beat Iceland, so it's a big win.
I think he only ever scored 3 goals or something for Denmark. And
two of them were there.
Were in that match,
Yeah, so it's considered a famous game. And among the adoring crowd in Copenhagen is none other than Iron Mike Tyson, former world heavyweight champion, who gets actually quite obsessed with Gravesen. I think he sees a kindred spirit. And he goes after the game and like gets his shirt. And apparently for the whole time Mike Tyson's in Denmark, he's just wearing this shirt, not washing it, just rocking the Gravesen look.
Sweaty Denmark shirt.
What was Mike Tyson doing in Denmark?
I don't know. What year is this? 2002? Or
possibly 2001. So
was he still fighting there? He was.
Yeah, the Lennox Lewis fight is later than that, but he's past his prime.
He's just big celeb then, just probably doing.
Well, he's another maverick, so he just goes.
Yeah.
He's just a globetrotter, isn't he?
Yeah, he sort of just goes to Denmark,
Yeah.
doesn't he? Because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there was a pigeon there.
Good for the
like.
brand.
It's probably pigeon related. Anyway, at the World Cup, Denmark go into the World Cup with like quite high expectations. They've got a decent team. They've had this thumping victory over Iceland, and Mike Tyson's in their corner. Yeah. So the hopes are high, but the mood in the camp gets really overshadowed by this tragic story about Stig Tofting, one of their teammates, who it turns out that when he was younger, his father killed his mother. It's a horrible story, and the press reveal it on the eve of the World Cup, which naturally the team are like disgusted by, that they've invaded his privacy like this, and it creates this kind of like siege mentality, and also this desire among the Danish players to just like have fun with each other and escape all of this. And so, to kind of distract themselves from all this and from the pressure of the World Cup, they get into some quite like harmless japes. So like, the washing up liquid goes back in the swimming pool filter. And then Stig Tofting and Jesper Grønkjær pin down Thomas Gravesen and put ice cubes in his shorts, and it's like all quite good fun. He wrestles them to the ground and like a little fight breaks out. And it's all like, that's quite good nature. Maybe the fight went a bit far, knowing Thomas Gravesen. They probably briefly stopped breathing, but it's all good fun, really. And then a few days later, Thomas comes up with his own prank, and it's just as the Danish media are assembled taking photos of the players on the training park. Thomas sort of leans over a teammate and pulls his shorts to one side and dangles his cock in the ear of the teammate. Got a picture of it now, which we will link to in the show notes. I always thought it was balls, but that's his cock, isn't it?
Cock, yeah.
It's quite bulbous. I can see where the confusion
Yeah.
I'm just trying to assess the size.
Yeah.
It's hard to assess size, I agree.
Klaus Jensen's smiling.
I think he's unaware, though, isn't he?
He's unaware, yeah.
Was he smiling 5 seconds later? It's a nice moment, really. I think it brings the team together.
I think so. It's just locker room stuff,
Yeah.
I also heard that you were talking about the whole Stig Tofting thing, that the Danish team were really like horrified that this story had come out, and kind of after that we're like, okay, fuck this, we're not speaking to the media. And Thomas Gravesen has always been pretty reluctant to give interviews, I think, which is partly why a lot of these stories haven't come out as they have with other players. And apparently that was sort of a turning point for him that he was like, I'm not speaking to the media. Like they don't care about your welfare. They're just going to tell these stories. So that's why he was quite secretive.
Right, yeah.
In the future.
Secretive in some respects, but then will have his cock out in front of them.
In front of the media.
Yeah, happy for that cock to be immortalised forever. He's an enigma. On the pitch, it goes pretty well. Denmark win their group. And then you probably remember they get knocked out by England in the last 16.
3-0.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And even Heskey scored, I believe.
Yeah, even Heskey.
I'm trying to remember the other goal scorers. Probably Owen.
Owen, maybe Gerrard.
Yeah, 3-0. Anyway, that's not a bad run. And he comes back to Everton and becomes a stalwart of the team. We're now in Thomas Gravesen's pomp, I would say. His absolute peak of his career. And it's Everton's pomp, really, in the Premier League era. So they finished 4th in 2004-05 under David Moyes. This is when he's getting Champions League football. And so it's a bit of a surprise in January of that year when they let Gravesen go. He leaves. Turns out his contract was running down, so obviously they didn't want to let him leave for a free. They get 3 million for him, which even in today's money feels like a complete...
Yeah, considering he was like kind of the star of the team, or at least like the anchor of the midfield, really, along with Carsley.
Yeah, 7 million feels right.
Yeah, well, in today's money, you'd sort of put it... Last year contract, 25 mil.
Yeah, well, a fellow Dane... Eriksson, when his contract was about to run out in 6 months, he went to Inter Milan for about 18.
Yeah, that feels about the right territory.
Yeah.
So it's a cheap deal, but you can't blame...
Going rate for a Danish midfielder in the final year of their contract.
Is there a bald premium?
Yeah, I mean Eriksson's a bit bald as well.
Yeah. True. Anyway, you can't blame Gravesen for leaving Everton because who comes calling? It's Real Madrid.
Yeah, and this was like peak Real Madrid's Galactico era. So he walked into the dressing room with like Roberto Carlos, Zidane, Figo, Raul, Ronaldo, David Beckham, and then in the middle of it all, Thomas Gravesen. It's quite a funny scene. And I think everyone in football really is quite shocked when this transfer comes about. We were saying before that rumour goes round that they were actually trying to sign his midfield partner Lee Carsley, fellow Baldy, and got mixed up. But to be honest, I feel like...
That would be even more...
even more rogue. That
would be ludicrous.
Lee Carsley to
that would be more ludicrous than them buying Jonathan Woodgate. That would be the most crazy...
Yeah, the three of them together.
Yeah.
Do you remember Julian Faubert?
Yes.
That was considered one of their...
Did he go to Real Madrid?
Yeah. He was on at West Ham and he got a loan deal there.
Oh, yeah.
And he was crap at West Ham.
He never played, did he? Yeah.
He never played. And
he got in a fight in training at Real Madrid, didn't he?
Yes.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
Knowing about all this like shady world of agents and how close they are with presidents, you wonder whether at some point it's just, the agent knows something about the president and it's like, you sign my player, I won't tell you about your
Faubert,
orgy.
But Thomas Gravesen was good enough.
He was good.
Like, not saying
that was why.
And the whole folly of the Galactico era was not having more glue players like Gravesen, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a bit too mental to be considered glue, but
yeah. I mean, he did actually play for them as well. So when he arrived in Madrid, Marca, the Spanish newspaper, welcomed him with a front page that mocked him up to look like Shrek. We're looking at it now. It's Gravesen's head coloured green with the Shrek ears, and the headline is "The Ogre Galactico."
Was that them pleased that he's coming?
I don't know.
I think they're mocking him.
They're sort of mocking him, aren't they? But maybe embracing him as a sort of the ugly duckling of the team, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, Gravesen's not overawed by his new teammates, so he walks straight into the starting 11, which is kind of surprising. And within a couple of games, he's there barking orders at Zinedine Zidane. Also asserts himself in the training grounds. He gets into a play fight, a sort of scrap with Ronaldo. But this being Gravesen, I think he doesn't quite know his own strength and ends up knocking out one of Ronaldo's teeth, which his teammates are pretty horrified about. This is like our star striker.
Yeah.
Like
we don't know which tooth. It wasn't one of the iconic gappy teeth at the front, I guess.
Maybe that was where the gap came. No, the gap was there before, right? Yeah. I don't know.
There's a running theme with Gravesen of like violence towards teammates, where like he just goes way further than anyone else ever would.
Yeah, he got in a fight with Robinho as well. That I think was more bad natured.
Robinho is he's a little wanker though.
Yeah, turns out he's a scumbag.
I'm sure he had it coming. Yeah.
What happened?
So I think Gravesen went in hard on him with a tackle, as he generally does. And Robinho didn't take too kindly for it and like squared up. But they were like properly swinging punches, kicking at each other. There's a tape of it, and they get dragged apart, and Robinho gets like pulled back to the dressing room, and they're like holding Gravesen back, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. So yeah, you know, I think a lot of players would walk into that Real Madrid dressing room and be shrinking violets, but that's not Gravesen's style, clearly. It does come with some perks as well, playing for Real Madrid. So he has a little cameo in Goal 2.
Fucking hell, who doesn't have a cameo in Goal? Like every episode we do, we're like, and they had a cameo in Goal.
Yeah. Did they get paid for that, or was it just a sort of status thing?
I don't know, but like Mike Ashley's in it, Ronaldo's in it, about 10 other players we've talked about have been in Goal.
Shearer's in it, I remember.
Yeah. I guess if you're at Real Madrid or Newcastle, you're likely to.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he does actually do pretty well at Real Madrid, though. He plays in a lot of their big games, but eventually he drops out of the starting 11, and shortly after that fight with Robinho, he ends up moving on. They decide to get rid. So there's rumours initially that he's going to move to Newcastle. That doesn't materialise, and he ends up going north of the border.
To Celtic, which feels like a good fit.
Yeah.
He's in his 30s now. It's like sort of later career. Just feels like the sort of club that embraces a real kind of cult figure, maverick. He actually becomes Scottish football's highest earner when he moves to Celtic in 2007. So he's on 40 grand a week at that point, which is quite big money anywhere at that point. It's kind of the reverse to when he joined Real Madrid. Now he is the really glamorous star, right? He's come from the Galacticos team. It's a big name. He doesn't actually act like the big star, though. He's sort of more down to earth than that. We've got a story here from Cy Ferry, his teammate at Celtic.
Mate, he came from Real Madrid to Celtic.
Jesus.
Could not believe it, right? So we're in the pool room, the reserves. The first team wouldn't come anywhere near that. Just leave the scumbags in the pool room, right? He comes bouncing through, mate. Morning, lads. We're like, the fuck? Who's this? He's like, what is this? And we were like, it's pool, mate. And he's like, oh, give us a game. Grab the cue off somebody, mate. And even if he got beat, he'd stay on. Nah, off you get, lad. It's like, no, Tommy, winner stays on. Like, he's like, fuck off, lad. I'm staying on. And see if you got a cheeky one, mate. He just grab you. He was the strongest man in the world. He'd get you in a chokehold. Why are you on the flare, mate? While the other reserves are just going about their normal day-to-day life. And he'd be like talking to you while you're right, lad. Your face is going a bit purple there. Mate, I'm not talking too much. I'm talking to other boys who've left to go for training, and you and him are still lying on the pool room floor. He's got you in a hold. I'm like, Tommy, we've got training. He's like, don't care, lad.
Yeah, the violence continues on the teammates.
I heard another pool story. I can't remember if it was at Celtic or somewhere else. I thought he's quite good at pool.
Yeah, apparently he's obsessed with it.
Yeah, that he would challenge his teammates to a sort of bet, like, okay, everyone put in whatever, 20 quid, and whoever wins gets it all. And they'd be like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Start playing a few games, and then he'd go down to his car, pull out this like Ronnie O'Sullivan pool cue, like state-of-the-art thing, like screw it together, and then just destroy them all.
Glove as well, I'm imagining. Yeah. His own talcum powder. Yeah. I'd say owning your own pool cue is a sinister personality trait. It's like owning night vision or driving gloves. It's just a bit sinister.
Yeah. John Fashionu's got one.
Bringing your own bowling balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there a story about Neil Warnock similar where he got everyone to put money in the hat and then pulled out his own bowling ball and just shot like 280 or whatever. He like missed one strike. Just hustling them. Yeah. I like that story about Gravesen because it shows that he's quite like down to earth, that the only senior player who would just walk in and just play pool with the reserves.
Strangle the reserve.
But then he would also strangle them until they were purple in the face and only stop when it's like...
And he has no like respect for like social norms.
Yeah.
Like just staying on after losing pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is just sociopathy. Quite a harmless sociopathy.
Yeah. Unless you're blue in the face.
Yeah.
Because you took exception to it. Around this time, he also starts dating a Danish porn star, Kira Eggers, who you guys will probably remember from Cock-Loving Lesbians and Black Bros Banging White Hoes, which actually came out in 2005, so just before Thomas started dating her. She played herself in that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a bit before my time, that one.
I'll drop the link in the show notes, as always. Anyway, so apparently word gets round the training park that Tommy's going out with a porn star, and his teammates would be like, Tommy, got any pictures of your missus? And he'd just reply, just Google her, lad. Loads on Google. Google her, lad. which, yeah, I mean, there are, if you choose to look around there. Doesn't quite work out with Kira. I don't think they're no longer an item. As for his performance on the pitch, Tommy starts brilliantly. So he scores in his first Old Firm derby, and then he gets his first and only hat-trick against St Mirren, the Giants. They all count. There's actually a really good story from his first Old Firm derby. So it's obviously like the big derby, you know, transcends any other really. It's certainly in British football. But Tommy doesn't really grasp how big the game is. Even he's played in Merseyside derbies, but he doesn't quite get the stakes and how high they are, and he doesn't realise that the players are meant to fucking hate each other. And so they're in the tunnel before the game, and everyone knows all the TV cameras are there, all on them, so they're all doing their best, like steely gaze forward, refusing to look at the blokes on the other team. And then Tommy Gravesen bowls through, just going down the line, going, "Hello, mate, you're right, lad," to every single opposition player, slapping them on the back, being really friendly. And then at half time, the players are trudging off, and he's sort of walking alongside Rangers midfielder Barry Ferguson, and he just turns to Ferguson and asks him for some restaurant recommendations in Glasgow.
That's good mind games.
Yeah, do you think that's it?
Yeah, it's big Grav here. Like he's a maverick.
Yeah, it's quite off-putting if you're trying to really be in the zone of hating them.
What? And he's like, do you know you're good for a curry? Yeah. Do you think that also explains his friendly greeting in the tunnel?
Yeah, isn't it like Maybe. There's some players that are on the pitch like, oh, how's the kids, all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's common.
Is that?
But I don't know what Grav
is that a little bit sinister though when they're asking about the kids? Because wasn't
I
there
think
one?
How's the wife? How's the kids?
That's John Fashanu, isn't it?
Is it John, I'm sure it was John Fashanu,
and he knew their names.
He'd find out the kids' names and go to the ref.
Yeah.
Okay, that is. Yeah.
When I said John Fashanu was a psychopath, I meant
knew what day they had violin practice and where.
How is little Kimmy doing in mathematics? He's a frightening man. I think maybe Gravesen is just that vibe of like, he'll slap you on the back and say hi, and then he will just 2-foot your meniscus, shatter it. He's still causing mischief on the training park as well. So there's a moment where Stephen Presley, his teammate, is in the recovery pool like after training, doing some sort of stretches in the pool, and Gravesen just swims underwater, pops up behind him, and then dunks him and holds him under the water for ages. Like, it sounds like quite a tame prank, but apparently it was like a long time, and everyone starts laughing, and then the laughter's kind of stopped. Gravesen still got him under the water. Eventually Presley emerges like choking on the water. Another of his favourite tricks involved really tormenting the reserves. So basically at the training ground, Celtic, basically the reserves would have to come back past the first team pitch to go back into the like training complex, and he would sometimes, if he saw a reserve player had got injured and the physios had gone down and was stretching the injured player back, he would hide in these bushes just after the reserve pitches, and then as the physios came past with the player on the stretcher, he would fly out the bushes and just spear tackle the stretcher and injured player, just send them flying into the air. That is mental.
At their lowest point, you have to hit them,
possible career-ending ACL, and he's like, fuck it. Surely you're making it worse.
Oh, he sounds like an absolute legend, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's just like some of these stories, you're like, oh, he was a bit of a prankster, and you hear that, and you're like, no one else would do that. Actually, though, his tormenting of the reserves slightly comes back to bite him, because he ends up becoming one of them. So Gordon Strachan's brought him in, and he's kind of like, I've got the superstar, and it's going all right, but Strachan can't really handle Gravesen's maverick ways. So, like, apparently during his team talks, Gravesen would just, like, get distracted, or he would sometimes pick up a newspaper with eye holes cut in it and just, like, play pranks. And he also had this habit of calling Strachan Gordon. Everyone would call him Gaffer, but he'd just be like, morning, Gordon. And he'd be like, don't fucking call me that. But he'd keep calling him it. So just like subtly undermining him. And eventually they properly fall out and, nearly come to blows. And Strachan dispatches him to the reserves to train with them. And a lot of his reserve teammates say, we've had it before where lads from the senior team will get sent down and they're fuming. They're like really angry. Sometimes they refuse. But Gravesen just loved it. So apparently Tommy pulls up on day one, and in his car, and they see him, he's like rummaging around in the boot, and then eventually he pulls out his pool cue and he's like, all right lads, pool. Just obsessed with pool. And then there's like a reserve team tour of Ireland, and the reserve manager's like, don't worry Tommy, you don't need to come on this. And he's like, I'm coming and just arrives and is like fully into it, 2-footing opponents, and
he's like Irish 16-year-olds.
Dundalk FC, and they've just got this nutter. Apparently, though, for the reserves, he'd get picked in central mid, but he would refuse to play there. He'd just go and stand on the left wing. And his midfield partner was like, mate, what the fuck are you doing? You're exposing me. And he was like, if you can't play on your own against them, you'll never make it. And we'd just like go and showboat on the wing.
What do you think his thinking was on going on that tour? Did he think that, you know...
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably they're the perfect prank victims as well.
Yeah. There's like a story one of the Celtic teammates tells of how like Gravesen loved Call of Duty. And he would come in the next day and he would reenact his kills from the night before on youth team players. So he would just come up behind one of them, grab them by the neck, and then pretend to stab them in the neck with his like knife from the cafeteria. So it's not sharp, but it is a knife. And he's like pretending to jam it in this guy's neck, and the guy's just having to take it. And then he just like let him go and be like, "That's what I was doing last night, lad." Anyway, Celtic do the double in his first season. I don't know how much he has to do with it because he only plays about 15 games, but you know, you get a medal. And that summer he goes back home to spend the summer in Denmark, and there he moves into his mum's basement, sets up shop, and gets really stuck into the Call of Duty. And so the story goes, he became number 1 ranked player in the world, 1 or 2, which it's hard to find documentary evidence for these things, but he's very good at it, apparently.
Yeah.
It seemed like every other kid at school was like top 10.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, but Gravesen doesn't come across as the sort of compulsive lying type.
No, I agree.
No, yeah.
Doesn't need to.
Yeah.
I can definitely imagine him just holding up in this like farty bedroom for the entire summer with the curtains drawn, just drinking energy drinks and eating Doritos.
Living the dream, really.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not as successful in his second season at Celtic as he is on the Xbox. And at the end of the year, he goes back on loan to Everton, which not a lot of people remember. It's quite a short spell. I think he plays 8 games or something. But nice bit, little swan song for him.
Yeah.
However, at the end of that season, he makes the surprise call to hang up his boots. He's only 32.
Yeah, it's quite a surprise, really. You'd think that he could just go down a few leagues. Like he said he consciously never played for more than one team in each country. Because, I don't know, he thought it was just like you have such an affinity with the fans. And I think because he was such a fan favourite, he felt like he'd be betraying them.
I actually believe him.
Yeah. So,
and maybe he loved the United Kingdom so much. It's like, well, I've got to go to Scotland now. Because Celtic and Everton, technically the same country.
Yeah, but different leagues.
Not in the eyes of Celtic fans, actually.
Yeah. That is very true.
Yeah, he could have. Where could he have gone? I guess he just didn't fancy a minor league.
Yeah,
he liked it. But also, there's a bit of the Cantona thing, isn't there? It's just like fuck it, drop the mic and leave the crowd wanting more.
Yeah, quit while you're ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much just disappeared after that, and nobody heard from him for about 4 years until he suddenly resurfaced, living in a luxurious gated community in Las Vegas. So apparently his neighbours there were Andre Agassi and Nicolas Cage, which, you know, like obviously he's played top flight football, played for Real Madrid, so he's got a fair bit of money, but you know, living in this like gated community with Nicolas Cage, like where has this cash come from? Turns out that he's become in that 4-year period a professional poker player and amassed $100 million fortune.
Like, what do you think he started with before the poker? Like, from football? I mean, probably 10, 20 mil or something?
A fair amount. I think he made some decent business ventures as well.
Right.
But yeah, so he did that. Apparently, in the midst of his poker career, he lost $54 million in one night at the table.
What, a $54 million hand, basically?
I guess so, yeah.
That is a tough day at the office.
Yeah.
Is that just the game? If you're earning that much from poker, you have those swings.
I guess maybe that's how he got to the 100 million.
Can only imagine the headlock he put Dan Bilzerian in for that. Took my money, lad.
Yeah, I don't know, because is that in one go? Like we've said, he does strike you as someone who just acts on what he feels is right in that exact second. So you can imagine if he's just like, he thinks he's got a good hand, it's like, yeah, just stick 50.
And maybe this is stretching it, but I kind of think he wouldn't be as bothered by losing that sort of money as others.
Yeah.
Either that or he would just beat the shit out of the croupier.
He'd married a Czech model who, I think they played poker together. So
okay, yeah.
Who knows, maybe.
It's quite a seedy world, poker, isn't it? I mean, I mentioned Dan Bilzerian, it's like him, Neymar's quite into it.
It's where you end up if you've got a porn star girlfriend.
Yeah, you do. Well, why do those things overlap so much? But I guess it's Vegas is the common theme.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not quite Andrew Tate level, but like, do you know what I mean? It's that world.
Yeah, we covered it recently. There was that poker game where I sat around the table was Neymar, Dan Bilzerian,
Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, who else?
Less glamorous.
Yeah,
there was someone else.
Oh,
and Ryan Garcia,
Ryan
the
Garcia.
head case boxer,
Yeah.
he's always proposing to porn stars, isn't he? That's his bag.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have necessarily, in his Everton pomp, put Thomas Gravesen into that set.
No, he was never flashy, which is something that Las Vegas poker scene obviously has. Like, I think it's a lot about flashing your cash and showing how much you're able to lose.
You think none of the other people on that table would have known who he was?
Yeah,
maybe that was part of his success.
Yeah, if you'd gone into pool, I would have got it, but poker feels.
Yeah,
there's no money in pool though.
Is there not?
Well, I suspect not as much as poker.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, that's a lovely turn up. Is that what he's up to now then? Basically?
So no, I think he's back living in Denmark now. He's left Las Vegas, and I think he's still a big cult hero in Denmark. So maybe he's on the circuit of TV appearances.
Yeah,
and
surely
punditry. I'm not exactly sure.
They gave Nicholas Bentner his own prank show. You think they give Gravesen something?
Yeah.
Although Thomas Gravesen's pranks would probably be a bit more violent.
Yeah.
He's going to make a whole series out of me dangling my cock at various
throwing dynamite at people.
Ears, yeah,
I'd watch that.
So that's where we're up to now then.
Yeah, I think so.
He's probably still only mid-40s.
Yeah, it must be.
I'd like to see a management stint, but it doesn't feel like it's going that way. He's probably too lone wolf, isn't he?
Is he active on any social media? I suspect not.
No, I
But-
don't think so.
Don't think so.
Maybe on like one of those
That's a
weird
shame.
we've Rumble.
Yeah.
What's Donald
Truth
Trump's one
Social.
called? Yeah, Truth. He's big on Truth Social. On Gravesen, we've reinstated the question at the end of our episodes, which is he a wrong 'un or is he good guy?
Good guy for sure.
Yeah, well, Will?
Yeah, he's got kind of he's got he'll beat you up, but he's got that twinkle in his eye, and yeah, I think good guy.
Yeah, I think definitely a good guy. I mean, all of the interviews that you see with teammates they absolutely love him, and I think that's kind of the best indicator, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I haven't found anyone who's slagging him off. I'm sure Rubinho would have a choice word or two from his Rio Slammer.
Yeah, you mean people that take themselves too seriously don't love him. So he's a good acid test in that way.
Yeah. All right, I think that's all we got time for. Will, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have a Maverick connoisseur on board for such a Maverick. Where did you rank him? Number 2?
Number 2, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say from learning some more on this episode, he's still number 2.
He's not quite Balotelli. All right, mate. Well, thanks a lot. Come on again soon. Zach, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening.